Imagine the worst wake-up call of your life. Armed government agents encircling your house at dawn, flashbangs going off, and rifles aimed at your loved ones. They burst through the front door like you're some cartel kingpin, shouting commands, smashing windows, and sending guard dogs into a frenzied search. At the end of the day, they come up empty-handed, but the damage is done. Your home is in ruins, your family is traumatized, and you've been treated like a criminal for no reason at all. The most chilling part? The agency behind this chaos is supposed to uphold our laws, not trample on them. And they did it all based on a fabrication, some phantom piece of evidence that never existed. Folks, this is the ATF we're talking about, and I'm far from the only one who's sick and tired of their antics. In this video, we'll talk about why so many Americans, millions of us, want this agency gone. We'll look at what happened to Mark Manley, a decent, law-abiding citizen whose home was turned into a war zone by these bureaucrats, and how the broader Second Amendment community rallied around him. From ATF overreach to their blatant mismanagement, from false raids to constant intimidation, we're not holding back. By the time we're done, you'll understand why people in the community believe the ATF's days are numbered. We're talking about an agency that has taken its mission and twisted it into a front-row seat for tyranny. So buckle up, because once we pull back the curtain on what these folks have been doing and how they continue to operate with minimal accountability, you'll see exactly why people are calling for the complete abolition of the ATF. Our Constitution demands we stand up to overreach, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So Mark Manley, who is this guy? Well, he's someone you could call a pillar of the community. He works as an intervention specialist in Maryland's public schools, coaches youth sports, and goes out of his way to help kids from all walks of life. He's a family man, someone who believes in building a stronger society through education and mentorship. Oh, and he also happens to be a gun enthusiast. Now, in a quote-unquote progressive state like Maryland, which isn't exactly known for its lax gun laws, that means he follows every rule to the letter. 70 firearms, all meticulously documented, all legally acquired. This is not some wild-eyed outlaw. This is a guy who respects the rules, respects the community, and respects the Constitution. But one cold November morning, his entire world got turned upside down. He and his family woke up to a scene you'd expect from a Hollywood raid on a dangerous gang. There were agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives crawling all over his lawn. They had fully automatic weapons at the ready, and they were there for him. Flashbangs went off, windows were shattered, doors were battered down, and Mark, his wife, and their young children were pulled out into the yard, clad in nothing but pajamas with guns pointed at them. Think about that for a second. You've done nothing wrong, you've followed every law, but suddenly you find yourself and your kids staring down federal agents in your own front yard. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe haven, and it's been turned into ground zero for a militarized operation. But the insanity didn't stop there. They brought in search dogs, animals that rampage through the place, ripping belongings, leaving filth everywhere. One report mentioned the dogs literally defecating in multiple rooms. How's that for adding insult to injury? And the real kicker? According to the warrant, Mark Manley was a convicted felon who illegally possessed firearms. That was supposedly the rationale for deploying this small army of agents and guard dogs. Only problem is, he isn't a felon at all. He's never even committed a single crime in his life. He's undergone background check after background check for both his job and his coaching roles. Every single gun was legally owned. There was no legitimate reason for any of this. When the feds demanded that Mark open his gun safe, he didn't fight them. He complied because he had nothing to hide. And sure enough, they found all the firearms properly documented. They realized the entire premise of the raid was bogus. Yet they left the house in shambles, traumatized Mark's kids, and waltzed out without so much as an apology. They only seized a phone, didn't fix the broken windows, didn't fix the doors, didn't offer a single explanation for what triggered this mess in the first place. To add insult to injury, Mark had to face the psychological aftermath. He's got kids who now associate nighttime and early mornings with sheer terror. He's got a shattered sense of security in his own home. And for a man who's dedicated his life to helping the community, being treated like a criminal by the government you trust is a deeply painful betrayal. Thankfully, the 2A community rallied in a big way. A GoFundMe was launched to help him cover repairs, and thousands of people chipped in. The gun rights crowd might be painted as heartless or selfish in the media, but when one of our own is unjustly attacked, we mobilize. This wasn't just about money. It was a statement that we wouldn't let a good man be destroyed by bureaucratic overreach. And here's what really scares a lot of people, including me. Mark's case is not a bizarre one-off. If I believed it was, I might sleep a little easier. But there's a pattern here. A long history of raids, intimidation, and so-called mistakes that always seem to happen to lawful gun owners. That's why Mark's story is so important. It exposes the tip of an enormous iceberg of ATF abuses. And it all boils down to a recurring theme. The ATF has far too much power, little oversight, and a disturbing habit of trampling the rights of people who obey the law. Now, if Mark Manley's ordeal were the only example, you might call it a freak accident, but it isn't. We have a long, ugly track record of ATF catastrophes. For anybody who's paid attention to history, just mention Waco or Ruby Ridge and watch the temperature in the room change. It's infuriating. We have entire communities of responsible gun owners like Mark Manley jumping through every legal hoop, background checks, licensing, safe storage, and they still get the short end of the stick. Meanwhile, I challenge you to find one major instance of the ATF busting up a powerful cartel or single-handedly curbing black market gun trafficking. It's as though their main function is to harass folks who already follow the law. It's not law enforcement. It's bureaucratic tyranny, pure and simple. And let's be clear, this isn't a problem of a few rogue agents. This is an institutional culture where overreach is normalized and accountability is almost non-existent. If you doubt that, just look at how these stories keep popping up decade after decade. The question we need to be asking is, why do we still have this agency around? Do they provide any essential service that another agency couldn't handle more competently? Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the ATF's sheer redundancy. Think about it for a moment. We've already got the FBI tackling organized crime, and we've got the DEA focusing on drug cartels and trafficking. Local police and sheriff's departments handle day-to-day law enforcement. Throw in Homeland Security, ICE, and other federal bodies, and you have a massive web of law enforcement agencies. So what critical function does the ATF provide that we don't already have covered? The truth is, they mostly duplicate efforts. Gun trafficking investigations? The FBI can handle that. Organized crime? The FBI, again. Smuggling operations? The DEA and even Customs and Border Protection are on it. Yet we keep funneling millions, if not billions, of tax dollars into the ATF's coffers. And for what? For them to run around, rewriting regulations, confusing lawful gun owners, and staging pointless raids that yield no actual criminals? This redundancy wouldn't be as infuriating if the ATF were harmless, but they're not. They have an ugly habit of mission creep. They keep pushing the boundaries, seizing more power, and writing new rules that trample our rights. They'll claim a certain attachment or accessory is illegal one day, only to backtrack under public pressure. Then a few months later, they might shift the rules again, leaving everyone scratching their heads. This sort of whiplash isn't just annoying, it's downright dangerous for folks who want to stay compliant. When law-abiding citizens risk felony charges because some bureaucrat decided to reinterpret a regulation, we have a massive problem. That's not how a free society should operate. Then consider the economic cost. Maintaining the ATF is expensive. We're flushing tax dollars down the drain to support raids like the one on Mark Manley's home, raids that do nothing but devastate families and degrade trust in the government. Do we really need another bloated federal agency whose main contribution seems to be stepping on the Constitution? And let's not forget the emotional toll. Every time a story like Mark Manley's hits the news, communities are rattled, families are left in trauma, children are scarred, and the rest of us wonder if we're next on the list. That fear erodes the foundational trust we should have in our institutions. When law enforcement is used as a blunt instrument to intimidate and punish people who pose no threat, the result is predictable: a growing wave of distrust and anger that harms the entire social fabric. Now, some folks might say, well, maybe the ATF just needs reform. But how many times have we heard that one? Waco, Ruby Ridge, Fast and Furious. Decades of failure, followed by internal reviews that produce little to no real change. Reform is a pipe dream. The culture is entrenched and the problems run too deep. It's like trying to patch a sinking ship with duct tape. The only real solution is to let other, more capable agencies handle the responsibilities the ATF has proven itself unworthy to execute. Shut this circus down. If there's one ray of hope in this whole mess, it's the solidarity and generosity of the Second Amendment community. Let me tell you, when these federal bullies raid a law-abiding citizen's home, our community doesn't stand by and wring its hands. We mobilize, we donate, we speak out, we turn up the volume until the story can't be ignored. In Mark Manley's case, a GoFundMe was set up almost immediately after word got out about the raid. Within hours, people from all over the country were pitching in to help him repair his house, replace damaged property, and get back on his feet. But it wasn't just about the money. It was a signal to the ATF and to every other government entity that we look out for our own. When the government tries to crush an innocent individual for daring to exercise his Second Amendment rights, they're going to find that we stand arm in arm. That unity is precisely what makes the Pro-2A crowd so formidable. A lot of folks in the media like to portray gun owners as lone wolves, isolated, paranoid, or worse. But that's a lazy stereotype. I've seen how quickly gun owners rally around a cause or a person who's been wronged. We understand that an attack on one of us for lawfully exercising our rights is an attack on all of us. We don't need the ATF's help to keep our communities safe. In fact, we're fully capable of handling it ourselves. Moreover, we recognize that the Second Amendment isn't just about guns. It's about the broader principle of freedom. When we see an agency so blatantly disregard due process and the rule of law, we're reminded why our founding fathers enshrined that right so firmly in the Constitution. They foresaw the dangers of unbridled government power. They knew that tyranny thrives where people can't defend themselves or speak out. We also see that every time the ATF does one of these raids, they're essentially proving our point. Centralized, unchecked authority is a threat to individual liberty. We stand up, not just for ourselves, but for the spirit of America, where freedom is supposed to reign supreme. That's why abolishing the ATF isn't just a policy decision, it's a moral imperative. Here's the plain truth. The ATF has no meaningful purpose in modern America. It's redundant, it's dangerous, and it consistently violates the very rights it's supposed to be upholding. Let the FBI or the DEA absorb any legitimate tasks, if there are any. We don't need a specialized hit squad masquerading as law enforcement. We don't need an agency that can't differentiate between criminal cartels and people like Mark Manley. If you agree with me, if you think it's time for the ATF to go, then get involved. Support organizations that are fighting for our Second Amendment rights. Contact your representatives. Make your voice heard. Spread stories like Mark Manley's and share videos like these with your family and friends, because the more people understand what's really going on, the more pressure we can put on the politicians who keep this broken agency alive. We stand at a crossroads. Either we continue to watch government power expand at the expense of law-abiding Americans, or we take a stand and fight to preserve the freedoms we hold dear. I've made my choice. And I hope, after hearing about Mark Manley and the endless examples of ATF overreach, you'll make yours. Let's put this monstrosity out of its misery. Abolish the ATF, pass its legitimate duties to agencies that can handle them without constantly harassing innocent citizens, and reaffirm our commitment to the freedoms that make America the beacon of liberty it's supposed to be. Let's show the ATF that their days of unchecked power are over. Let's put our collective foot down and say, enough is enough. I'm fighting for Mark Manley, for every wrongly targeted gun owner, and for the Constitution itself. I hope you'll join me in that fight. And that's all for this video. If you like what we do here, please like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon for updates on Mark Manley's story. Thanks for watching.